I never imagined that one single word could destroy years of friendship. But the night I refused to babysit my best friend's daughter, everything I thought I knew about loyalty, trust, and love came crashing down. It wasn't just about a child, or a favor, or even a night of inconvenience. It was about boundaries, expectations, and the way one person's choice can shatter another person's image of you forever. It started on what should have been an ordinary Saturday evening. The sky outside was painted in streaks of purple and orange as the sun dipped low, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of peace. My work schedule had been brutal. Long hours, late nights, endless responsibilities, and my body was screaming for rest. I curled up on my couch with a blanket, a cup of tea, and the plan to do absolutely nothing. That night was supposed to be mine. But then my phone buzzed. It was her. My best friend. The person who, until that moment, I thought would always see me, understand me, and value me. Her message was short but urgent. "Can you watch my daughter tonight? I'll explain later. Please." I frowned, my stomach tightening. It wasn't that I didn't love her little girl. I did. I had babysat. Countless times before, sometimes without even being asked, just stepping in because I wanted to help. But tonight was different. I needed a break. My hands trembled slightly as I typed back, "I'm sorry, I can't tonight. I really need to rest." Within seconds, my phone lit up with her name. I answered, and her voice rushed through. The line, breathless, almost frantic. "Please, just a few hours. You're the only one I can trust." I bit my lip, guilt gnawing at me, but I stayed firm. "I really can't. I'm exhausted. Maybe you can call your sister or—" She cut me off sharply. Her voice, once soft and pleading, turned cold as ice. "Can't or won't." The words pierced me. My throat tightened, and for a moment I couldn't even speak. Did she really think I was refusing out of cruelty? Did she not understand that sometimes, even the most giving friend needs a moment to breathe? I tried again to explain, but she muttered something I couldn't catch and hung up. I sat frozen, staring at my phone, heart pounding in my ears. The silence in my apartment suddenly felt deafening. I replayed the conversation over and over, each time feeling the weight of her accusation press heavier on my chest. I told myself she just needed time, that she'd cool off and understand. But deep down, unease slithered through me. The next morning, that uneasy feeling turned into devastation. I woke to notifications buzzing nonstop on my phone. Curious and anxious, I opened social media, and my breath caught in my throat. There it was, a post from her. Not naming me, but making it very clear who she was talking about. She wrote about so-called friends who refuse to be there when it matters most. She painted herself as abandoned, struggling, alone. And the comments were brutal. People rallied to her side, showering her with sympathy, condemning the selfish friend who had let her down. I felt sick. My palms grew sweaty, my throat dry. Friends we both knew started pulling away, their eyes filled with quiet judgment. The walls of trust I had believed surrounded me were crumbling, brick by brick, all because I had said no. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't just about one night. This was about to become a war. But I had no idea then just how ugly it would get. My name is Rachel Morgan, and I'm 27 years old. I live in a modest apartment on the outskirts of Denver, tucked between a coffee shop and a laundromat. It's not fancy, but it's mine. A quiet little space where I can escape the chaos of the world. By day, I work as a medical receptionist, shuffling files, answering phones, and trying to keep up with the endless demands of doctors and patients alike. By night, all I want is to curl up with a book, a blanket, and the sound of the city humming outside my window. But my story isn't really about work or apartments. It's about the people I let into my life. And at the center of it all was my best friend, Claire. We met when we were just 14, two awkward girls standing outside the gymnasium during a high school dance. She was bold and brash, wearing bright red lipstick that smudged on her teeth, while I was the quiet one, hiding behind long hair and an oversized hoodie. Somehow, in that moment of mutual discomfort, we clicked. From then on, we were inseparable. Claire had a way of making life feel like an adventure. She'd drag me to midnight diners, sneak us into concerts, and convince me to skip class to go on ridiculous road trips. She was reckless, magnetic, and full of fire. And me? I was the anchor, the one who kept her from spiraling too far. Our friendship was built on that balance. Her chaos, my calm. But everything shifted after high school. While I went to college and juggled part-time jobs, Claire fell in love fast and hard. By 21, she was a mom to a little girl named Lily. The father was gone before the baby turned 6 months old, leaving Claire to navigate single motherhood on her own. And that's when she started leaning on me more heavily than ever before. At tea. First, I didn't mind. I loved Lily with all my heart. She had these big blue eyes that seemed to hold the whole world inside them, and a laugh that could soften even the hardest day. I'd babysit on weekends, help with doctor's appointments, and sometimes even stay over when Claire needed a break. Being around Lily gave me purpose. It felt like I was part of a little family, even though it wasn't mine. But as time went on, I noticed the shift. What started as occasional help turned into constant expectation. Claire didn't ask as much as she assumed. She'd say things like, "You're basically her second mom," with a laugh, or, "Lily loves you more than anyone." And while the words sounded sweet, the weight behind them grew heavier every time. I started to feel less like a friend doing favors and more like a crutch holding up her life. I brushed the feeling aside, telling myself this was what friends were for. Besides, Claire had been there for me too, during breakups, family fights, and the dark days when I doubted myself. So I kept saying yes, over and over, even when it meant sacrificing my own plans, my own rest, my own peace. Until that Saturday night when I finally said no. And that was the moment everything unraveled, because what Claire saw as betrayal, I saw as survival, and neither of us was willing to back down. The day after I refused to babysit, Claire didn't call, text, or even acknowledge me. That silence cut deeper than any argument could. I kept glancing at my phone, expecting her to at least send a sarcastic message or a passive-aggressive emoji, but nothing came. For someone who used to flood my inbox with updates about every tiny detail of her life, the sudden quiet felt like a storm cloud hanging over me. By Monday, things only got worse. At work, during my lunch break, I logged onto social media. The first thing I saw was Claire's post. She had written, "You find out who your real friends are when you're desperate, and they can't be bothered to help. Some people pretend to care, but when it counts, they vanish." She didn't tag me, but she didn't need to. Everyone in our circle knew I was the one she was talking about. My stomach dropped as I scrolled through the comments. Friends we'd grown up with chimed in, "That's awful, Claire, you deserve better." Another wrote, "Some people are so selfish." Each word felt like a jab in the ribs. That night, I tried calling her. When she didn't answer, I left a voicemail. "Claire, can we talk? I didn't mean to upset you. I needed a night for myself. Please call me back." My voice cracked at the end, betraying the guilt I was trying to suppress. She never returned the call. Instead, the following weekend, she showed up at my apartment unannounced. When I opened the door, she was standing there with Lily on her hip and a scowl carved into her face. "We need to talk," she snapped. I let her in, my heart hammering in my chest. Lily reached out for me with a smile, and instinctively, I took her into my arms. That made Claire's eyes narrow even more. "I don't get it," she began, pacing the living room. "You've always been there for us, always. And suddenly one night you can't? Do you know how that makes me look? Do you know how that made me feel?" I swallowed hard, clutching Lily tighter. "Claire, I wasn't trying to hurt you. I was exhausted. I've been working nonstop." "Exhausted?" She cut me off, her voice rising. "Do you think I'm not exhausted? Do you think I don't get tired? I'm a single mom, Rachel. I don't get breaks. I don't get nights off. And I thought you understood that." Her words hit me like stones, but beneath the anger, I heard something else. Fear. She wasn't just furious at me. She was terrified of being alone, of having no one to rely on. Still, I couldn't let her guilt me into believing I was wrong for saying no. "Claire, I love Lily," I said softly. "You know I do. But I can't be the one you always count on. It's not fair to me." Her face hardened. She crossed her arms, her jaw tight. "So that's it? You're done helping us? After everything?" I shook my head quickly. "No, I'm not done. I just need you to understand my limits. I can't always drop everything." The silence that followed was suffocating. Lily tugged at my hair, giggling, oblivious to the tension crackling in the air. Claire finally grabbed her daughter from my arms and muttered, "Maybe I've been wrong about you all along." Then she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I stood frozen, my chest aching as if something inside me had cracked. I knew this wasn't the end of the fight. It was only the beginning, and I was right, because what Claire did next blindsided me completely. I should have known that Claire wasn't going to let things go. She never did. When she felt wronged, she didn't sulk quietly. She struck back, and she struck hard. A week after the confrontation in my apartment, the fallout began. It started with little things. A mutual friend canceled our coffee plans last minute, claiming she forgot about another commitment. Another stopped replying to my texts altogether. When I finally asked one of them what was going on, she hesitated before admitting, "Claire says you abandoned her when she needed you most. She's really hurt, Rachel. People are just taking sides." The words stung. Taking sides? Over one night? Over one refusal? My throat tightened as I tried to explain, but the friend just sighed and said, "You should talk to Claire." Then she hung up. The isolation spread like wildfire. Suddenly, I wasn't invited to group dinners, birthday gatherings, or even casual hangouts. Pictures of them together flooded social media with captions like, "Real friends stick by you," through thick and thin. It was clear. Claire wasn't just angry. She was rewriting the narrative of our friendship, casting herself as the victim and me as the villain. But the real blow came 2 weeks later. I was at work, sorting files at the front desk when a coworker approached me with a hesitant look. "Hey, Rachel, do you know someone named Claire?" My stomach dropped. "Yes. Why?" "She came in earlier," the coworker whispered. "She was really upset. She told the office manager you've been neglecting a child in your care, that you're irresponsible." The file slipped from my hands, scattering papers across the floor. My pulse roared in my ears. "What? That's not true." "I figured," my coworker said quickly, helping me gather the papers. "But you should know she's saying things." Loudly. Panic clawed at my chest. My job required trust and professionalism, and Claire knew it. She wasn't just hurting my reputation socially, she was trying to poison my career. That night, I called her over and over, desperate to confront her, but she ignored every call. Finally, I typed out a message. "Claire, why are you doing this? I've always been there for you. One night doesn't erase years of friendship. Please stop." Her reply came hours later. "You showed me who you really are. I can't trust you with Lily. And if other people see the truth too, that's on you." I stared at the words until my vision blurred. She wasn't just angry, she wanted to ruin me. For days I walked around in a haze. The stress ate at me, my stomach knotted, my hands trembling during the simplest tasks. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped, terrified of what new damage she'd done. Nights were the worst. I'd lie awake replaying our history, wondering how someone I once called my sister could turn so vicious. And yet, a small part of me still hoped she'd come to her senses. That we could sit down, talk it out, cry, and somehow patch the cracks. But deep down, I knew better. Claire thrived on control, and by saying no, I had challenged that control. She wasn't going to forgive me. She was going to break me. What I didn't realize then was that her next move would drag innocent people into the mess and force me to make a choice I never thought I'd face. I thought Claire's smear campaign would stay limited to gossip and cold shoulders, but I underestimated her. The worst part wasn't what she said about me. It was how she used Lily to twist the knife deeper. One Sunday afternoon, I was walking home from the grocery store when I spotted Claire at the park. She was sitting on a bench with two of our mutual friends, Lily playing a few feet away in the sandbox. Normally, Lily would run straight toward me, arms wide, squealing my name. But this time when our eyes met, she froze. Claire leaned down, whispered something in her ear, and suddenly Lily turned her back on me. My heart sank. I dropped my gaze to the pavement, clutching the grocery bag so hard the plastic dug into my palms. Claire laughed loud enough for me to hear, her voice dripping with venom. See? Even she knows who really cares about her. It took everything in me not to cry right there in front of everyone. How could she use her daughter, an innocent child, as a pawn in her vendetta? Lily had nothing to do with this, yet Claire was, already planting seeds of doubt in her little mind. Later that week, I got a call from Claire's sister, Jenna. She sounded hesitant but concerned. Rachel, I don't know what's going on between you two, but Claire told the family you've been unreliable with Lily. She even hinted that you left her alone once. Is that true? My jaw dropped. Of course not. I would never, ever leave her alone. I didn't think so, Jenna admitted. But Claire's been saying it to everyone. Mom's furious. She thinks you're dangerous around kids. Dangerous. That word cut me open. I loved Lily like she was my own. The thought of anyone believing I'd put her at risk made me sick. By now, my once comfortable life felt like a battlefield. At work, I felt coworkers watching me, wondering if the rumors were true. In our friend group, people whispered behind my back, their smiles tight and forced. Even running errands in my own neighborhood felt suffocating. I never knew who had heard Claire's twisted version of events. I tried one last time to talk to her directly. I showed up at her apartment, my hands shaking as I knocked. When she opened the door, her expression was pure ice. Claire, please, I begged. You know I've never hurt Lily. Why are you saying these things? Her lips curled into a bitter smile. Because you hurt me. You abandoned us. Maybe now you'll understand what it feels like to be left behind. I blinked, stunned. So you're punishing me by destroying my reputation? By poisoning Lily against me? She didn't flinch. Actions have consequences, Rachel. You made your choice. Then she closed the door in my face, leaving me trembling in the hallway. That night, I sat on my couch in the dark, tears streaming down my face. The walls of my apartment felt like they were closing in. All I had wanted was one night of peace, one night to recharge, and somehow it had spiraled into this nightmare. I knew I couldn't keep living in her shadow. I couldn't keep letting her dictate how the world saw me. Something inside me hardened that night, because if Claire wanted a war, then I was finally ready to fight back. The night I sat in the dark crying was also the night something inside me snapped. For weeks, I had let Claire dictate the story, twisting me into a villain. But the truth was, I had nothing to be ashamed of. I had always been there, for her, for Lily, for everyone. And now I was being punished for daring to say no. If Claire wanted a war, then fine. But this time, I wasn't going to play defense. My first step was gathering evidence. I started saving screenshots of every vague, accusatory post she made online. I wrote down the dates of every time she'd dropped Lily off without warning, every night she had left me scrambling to rearrange my life. I even reached out to Jenna, her sister, who, despite being family, wasn't blind to Claire's manipulative streak. Jenna agreed to testify, if it ever came to that I had always been careful and loving with Lily. The more I documented, the stronger I felt. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't drowning. I was swimming, but I didn't stop there. Claire had dragged my name through the mud in front of our friends, so I decided it was time they heard my side of the story. I invited a few of them over to my apartment one evening, carefully choosing the ones who seemed torn rather than blindly loyal to her. When they arrived, I laid everything out. The messages, the screenshots, the timeline. My voice shook at first, but as I spoke, I found my strength. She says I abandoned her, I told them, holding back tears. But tell me, how many times have you seen me with Lily? How many times have I canceled my own plans to help her? I love that child, but I can't give up every piece of myself just to keep Claire happy. There was a long silence. Then one friend, Marissa, finally nodded. You're right. She does lean on you too much. I guess we only heard her side. Relief washed over me, but also anger. How easily people had believed the worst about me without ever asking. Still, that small victory lit a fire in me. If Claire could use her voice to tear me down, I could use mine to set the record straight. So I made a decision. I wrote a long, carefully worded post of my own. Not an attack, not gossip, just the truth. I explained how I had supported Claire. For years, how I loved Lily, how I had never once put her in danger. I admitted that yes, I said no one night, but that didn't erase everything else. I ended it by saying, friendship is a two-way street. Support shouldn't come at the cost of someone else's well-being. Within hours, the comments rolled in. Some were supportive, some skeptical, but the tide had begun to turn. People who had stayed silent finally spoke up, saying they'd seen how much I'd done for Claire. Even Jenna chimed in, backing me up. Claire, of course, exploded. She sent me a furious string of messages accusing me of airing private matters. But this time I didn't crumble. I didn't apologize. I simply replied, you wanted everyone to know your version. Now they know mine. And for the first time, she didn't have a response. Still, I knew this wasn't over. Claire wasn't the type to back down easily. If anything, she'd double down. And when she did, I had to be ready for the final showdown. Claire's silence after my post didn't last long. I knew her too well. She thrived on drama, and if there wasn't enough already, she would create more. A few days later, she showed up at my apartment without warning. When I opened the door, she was standing there with fire in her eyes, her arms crossed tight against her chest. We need to talk, she spat. I stepped aside reluctantly, my heart thundering. She stormed inside, pacing like a caged animal. How dare you? How dare you go online and humiliate me? I kept my voice steady, though my hands trembled. Claire, you humiliated me first. You dragged my name through the mud for weeks. I stayed quiet until I couldn't anymore. Her eyes narrowed. You think people believe you? They know me. They know I've been struggling. You made me look like a bad mother. I took a deep breath, forcing myself not to shout. I never said you were a bad mother. I said I couldn't be your replacement every single time you wanted a break. That's not my job, Claire. I'm your friend, not your babysitter on call. 24/7. She flinched as if the words hit harder than a slap. For a moment, I saw something flicker in her expression. Shame, maybe even regret. But it vanished quickly, replaced with fury. You owe me. She snapped, her voice shaking. I gave you friendship, loyalty, everything. And you repay me by abandoning me when I needed you most. I finally let my anger show. My voice rose, sharp and raw. Loyalty isn't slavery. I have given you years of my time, my energy, my love. And the one time I say no, you try to ruin me? You poisoned our friends against me. You lied to your family about me. You even used Lily to hurt me. That's not friendship, Claire. That's control. Her face reddened. Don't you dare bring Lily into this. But I pressed on, my chest heaving. She's already in this because you dragged her in. Do you know how much it hurt when she turned away from me at the park? She's 4 years old, Claire. 4. She doesn't understand your bitterness. You're teaching her to push away people who love her just because they don't bend to your every demand. For once, Claire didn't have a quick retort. Her lips quivered, her fists clenched at her sides. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. Finally, she whispered, I needed you. And when you said no, it felt like everyone was leaving me again. I softened, but only slightly. Claire, I get it. You're scared. You're tired. You feel alone. But destroying me won't fix that. And leaning on me like I'm your lifeline isn't fair. You need to stand on your own, for yourself and for Lily. Her eyes welled with tears, but her pride held them back. She shook her head slowly. Maybe we're just done. I felt my heart splinter, but I stood tall. Maybe we are. She turned, grabbed her purse, and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the walls rattled. I sank onto the couch, my body shaking with the weight of what had just happened. Years of friendship, laughter, late-night talks, all shattered in one brutal conversation. But even through the grief, I felt something else blooming inside me. Freedom. I had finally stood up for myself. And though it came at the cost of our friendship, it was the only way forward. When the echo of Claire's slammed door finally faded, the silence in my apartment felt different. It wasn't heavy anymore. It wasn't suffocating. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe. My chest rose and fell with long, steady breaths, like my body was slowly remembering what peace felt like. But peace didn't come without grief. I sat on my couch, staring at the door, and memories flooded in. Claire and I sneaking out of high school dances, pulling all-nighters in her mom's basement, laughing until we cried at silly inside jokes. All of it had once felt unshakable. Now it was gone, replaced by bitterness and betrayal. The hardest part wasn't losing Claire. It was losing Lily. I had grown to love that little girl as if she were my own niece. The thought of not seeing her again twisted my heart in ways I couldn't put into words. But I also knew I couldn't stay tethered to a toxic friendship just because of a child. I had to believe Lily would grow up and someday understand the truth. Over the next few weeks, life slowly shifted. The whispers in our social circle died down after my post, especially as more people began to see through Claire's patterns. Some even reached out privately to apologize for doubting me. At work, my boss called me into her office. My stomach churned with dread, but instead of scolding, she said, "We looked into the accusations. Nothing lined up. We know you're reliable. Don't worry." Relief washed over me so powerfully that I nearly cried right there in her office. For the first time since the nightmare began, I felt safe again in my job. Claire, on the other hand, kept her distance. I heard bits and pieces from mutual friends, how she was still bitter, how she told anyone who'd listened that I had betrayed her. But the storm she had stirred up around me finally lost its strength. People were tired of the drama. And I was. Tired of carrying the weight of it. One evening, as I watched the sunset through my apartment window, I realized something profound. Saying no hadn't destroyed me. It had saved me. It forced me to draw a line in the sand, to reclaim my boundaries, and to stop sacrificing myself just to keep someone else happy. For years, I had let Claire's chaos dictate my life. That night I refused to babysit wasn't the end of our friendship. It was the beginning of me finally standing up for myself. I still miss Lily. I probably always will. But I hope that someday she'll see that the woman her mother painted as selfish was actually someone who loved her enough to walk away from toxicity. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let go. And to anyone listening to my story, maybe you've been in a similar position. Pressured by a friend, manipulated by guilt, afraid to set boundaries because you don't want to lose someone. Let me tell you, you're allowed to say no. You're allowed to protect your peace. True friends will respect that. The ones who don't? They were never really your friends in the first place. If my story resonated with you, if you've ever had to make the painful choice to walk away from someone toxic, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Share your experience. It might just help someone else who's struggling. And if you want to hear more real-life stories like mine, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss the next one. Because life is full of choices, and sometimes the hardest no leads you to your strongest yes.